Today, let's talk about some specific tips to learn Portuguese, or any other language actually. So the first tip is to learn cognates. Cognates are words that are similar in meaning and in spelling in different languages. Many languages have many roots in common, so it's normal that it happens frequently. So my first tip is to take notes of cognates when you see them. When you are learning a language, it's always good to have the impression that you already know something, and learning cognates is the best way to do it. The second tip when learning cognates is that you must be careful with false cognates. Some words really look similar, but when you check the meaning, they are not actually the same. So this could cause many misinterpretations and many problems when learning a language. So always check the meaning. Don't assume it's the same just because it looks like it's the same. And the third tip when learning cognates is learn the correct pronunciation. Since the words are similar to words you already know, you may end up pronouncing them the way you do in your native language. So pay attention to the correct pronunciation to avoid not being understood by native speakers of your target language. So let's see some examples on how to learn cognates. I'll give you the example of English, Portuguese, but this applies in any other cases. So let's see the words in English, zero and chocolate. They are written exactly the same way, zero, zero, chocolate, chocolate. But we also have examples in which it's not written exactly the same way, but with a little bit of creativity, you can guess. So for example, architect, arquiteto. Basic, básico. Since the pronunciation is different, I recommend you to repeat many times, like 10 or 20 times, until it's natural in the new language you are learning. Now, tip number 2, learn prefixes and suffixes. Prefixes are a group of letters placed before a word, and they carry a certain meaning. And suffixes are the same, but they go after a word. The prefixes and suffixes are not the same in different languages, but you can compare how these prefixes and suffixes work in both languages and play around with words you already know. Try to think of ways to include prefixes and suffixes so you end up having more vocabulary. And the third tip is pay attention when they reappear. And this is because I don't want you to memorize prefixes and suffixes like your life depends on it. They will reappear many times when you are learning a language, so you will end up learning a lot without even realizing it. So just pay attention when they reappear. See, here we have a prefix, re. Let's talk about this prefix. Again, comparing English and Portuguese, we have the same prefix in this case. It's re in both languages, which makes everything much easier. But it's not always the case. For example, the prefix an in English in Portuguese is deixe. And now let's see some suffixes. The ending ly, li, is mente in Portuguese. And also the ending chan in Portuguese is são. For example, we saw previously reappear. It means to appear again. And in Portuguese, it's the same, reaparecer. With an, we have, for example, undo, and in Portuguese, desfazer. So if you already know the verb fazer, it's easy to understand or guess what it means, just because you know the meaning of the prefix deixe. Let's continue. Rarely would be raramente. Action would be ação. So when you are learning a language, these kind of tips can really help you to guess the meaning of a whole sentence just by knowing what a suffix or a prefix means, and this will help you a lot in your comprehension. Let's see some other examples. So we talked about the verb undo, or do basically, and we know it's fazer in Portuguese. So let's play around with redo, and this would be refazer. Easy, right? So the third tip that I mentioned was about paying attention when this kind of prefixes and suffixes appear. So now let's put this into practice. I will say a sentence and you will try to pay attention to what I'm saying and try to recognize these prefixes and suffixes when I say them. If you don't know much Portuguese yet, don't worry. Just try to identify by listening these beginnings and endings that I just mentioned. Re, deixe, mente, são. Eu raramente tenho que refazer meu trabalho, porque eu faço tudo com atenção. Once again, eu raramente tenho que refazer meu trabalho, porque eu faço tudo com atenção. Now, I'm going to show you the sentence for you to read along. Eu raramente tenho que refazer meu trabalho, porque eu faço tudo com atenção. Can you spot the prefixes and suffixes? I will help you out. Here you go. See? When you learn these prefixes and suffixes, it's easy to understand from the context what you were talking about. Even if you don't know the meaning, maybe you can try to compare with your language. For example, atenção could be a very strange word if you don't know what it means. But since you know that são means shun, you can try to just substitute são by shun and see if it makes sense. So atenção, attention, attention. So you already have new vocabulary just by knowing what a suffix is. Let's continue. My last tip for people who are learning Portuguese is have fun. This is quite simple, right? But having fun is a very broad concept, and people have fun in different ways, actually. Everybody's different. So I will give you some guideline for you to follow. The first one is ask yourself, what is fun for you? Then try to answer the question, what will keep you motivated when learning a language? And third, how can you spend more time with the language? All these three questions will guide you through how you should keep learning a language. Because let's be honest, sometimes learning a language could be tiring and boring. So when you try to make it fun, there will be a lot more probability for you to keep going and learning more and more. So for you to customize the way you learn the language, first answer these questions. But I can give you some general things that will help you. And that usually works for everyone. So number one, don't stress over grammar. Knowing the rules is very important and many people really need it to feel comfortable with the language. But if you stress over it and you try to make some sense out of it all the time, you will get frustrated and learning will be less fun. So that's my first tip, hands down. Tip number two, find a speaking partner. It could be a native speaker, but also anybody, even people who are also just starting as you are, because this partner can be a speaking partner, but also an accountability partner, everybody really that can help you keep going. And the third tip is mingle with the culture. Learning a new language is not supposed to be boring because you are learning different ways to say things, different culture, different people, so in and of itself, it's a very fun thing to do. Try to mingle with the culture by traveling to a country that speaks your target language, but also there are easier ways that you can do from your home. You can watch TV, some movies and documentaries and YouTube channels that will bring you a lot of the culture and the language itself. But also you can Mingle with the culture by reading books. It's a very fun way to learn a language. It's challenging, I know, because you will end up seeing many words you don't know. But if you keep going, you will probably end up learning and understanding more and more as the story goes forward. So that's it. These are the 3 main tips I give you if you want to learn a language. Which of these tips are you going to put into practice today? It's easy, just do it. Let me know in the comments if you already apply them in your study routine. Thanks for watching. Please give me a thumbs up if you liked this video, subscribe, and check my other videos. Bye!